Here's your wrestling news for March 19th, 2023, and we're kicking off today with WWE, and it has been previously reported that this year's WrestleMania will be a more cost-effective show than previous years, with WWE cutting the budget for their event. The reason is that WWE wants to look as profitable as possible for a potential buyer who will be watching WrestleMania closely, and this cost-effective show could just be the start of things to come. As Wrestling News reports, more cost-effective cuts are expected, but this time to the roster, as they explain. There are a number of cuts coming to the WWE's regular staff and its roster. Apparently, there have been no communications between management and staff as well as wrestlers that cuts are coming. However, there is a feeling that they are coming, both because of the efforts to sell WWE and the fact that the WWE regularly trims its wrestling roster after WrestleMania. There's no word on who WWE plans on cutting, but with WWE ready to be bought by a new owner, expect their cost-cutting measures to come at the expense of many on the roster. If you've followed the career of Bray Wyatt, you will know that he is one of WWE's most creative superstars who has never shied away from sharing his ideas. In 2019, Wyatt's character saw a drastic revamp with the arrival of the Firefly Funhouse, but now one of Bray's biggest allies is gone. Fightful Select has learned that Nick Manfredini has parted ways with WWE after signing with the promotion in the spring of 2010. They report, when asking around about rumored looming WWE cuts, Fightful was told that it hasn't been something that has been discussed broadly within the company, but we're told of a fairly recent departure. Fightful Select has confirmed that Nick Manfredini left the company earlier this year. Manfredini had been with WWE for well over a decade, having joined the fold in the spring of 2010. Manfredini was heavily influential in the creation and creative of the Firefly Funhouse segments. Their report added that Manfredini was a guy within WWE who would often downplay credit on himself, but was often put over by Bray Wyatt himself to people backstage. At the time of Manfredini's departure, it was unclear if he chose to leave or if he was fired, but when Ringside News asked around, they learned that he was indeed terminated from his position. It was added that Manfredini being removed from WWE had nothing to do with the aforementioned budget cuts, and it remains unclear what exactly caused his release from the promotion. Whatever the reason for his departure, Manfredini's departure is a loss for Wyatt, and with Bray's WrestleMania status in question, this is an interesting time indeed for the former Universal Champion. One name who is expected to be safe in this upcoming round of cuts is Vince McMahon, who is back with WWE and doesn't plan on leaving, at least until a sale is finalized. Earlier this month, McMahon was backstage at Raw in his first appearance at a WWE event since before his retirement, and many believe that it's just a matter of time before he makes his return to TV. Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated described McMahon's Raw appearance as a chess move and said that it's clear that Vince was doing much more than just catching up with John Cena as previously claimed. He added, "He had a motive attached to his return, and it's undoubtedly part of a plan. There are endless options as to what McMahon's appearance at Raw could mean, but the only certainty from my perspective is that it'll serve as a prelude to McMahon going to WrestleMania and being back on site for WWE's signature event." Given the controversy surrounding his retirement as well as his return, McMahon would likely not be on the receiving end of a warm welcome if he appears at WrestleMania. And do you think Vince should be on the show? Let us know in the comments. As one of WWE's biggest stars in the mainstream, it's hardly a surprise that the company has WrestleMania plans for Ronda Rousey, but those plans were recently put in serious jeopardy. It was a few weeks back that Rousey wore a sling during an episode of SmackDown, and we have a better idea of what is wrong with the former women's champion. During a PW Insider mailbag, Mike Johnson was asked about Rousey's injury and said, "The belief among some we've spoken to is she's been dealing with a hairline fracture of her arm. It's never been officially confirmed." It has been reported that Rousey and Shayna Baszler will be one of the 4 teams in the women's Fatal 4-Way Tag match, despite previously being marked down to challenge for the women's tag team titles. Ever since Rousey and Baszler were put together on screen, the plan has been to put the titles on the pair eventually, but what do you think of this change of plans for the former SmackDown Women's Champion? Last May, Randy Orton went down with a serious back issue, which has kept the Viper out of action ever since. While WWE had initially planned on Orton being back by SummerSlam 2022, that obviously didn't happen, and now we have an update on the Legend Killer. PW Insider is reporting that Orton's name has been going around internally within WWE in recent weeks after not being brought up in some time. While this doesn't confirm that Orton will be stepping into the ring anytime soon, it's certainly a step in the right direction for the Viper, who said in 2022 that he would love to wrestle for another decade. Whether Orton is able to do that remains to be seen, but hopefully it won't be much longer before the Viper is hitting his RKO out of nowhere. It was earlier this month that Roxanne Perez collapsed after a successful NXT Women's Championship defense, and the young superstar hasn't been seen since. On this week's NXT, it was announced that a new women's champion will be determined at Stand and Deliver, but there's now been a major update on Perez, as Dave Meltzer reports. There is an injury angle going on with Roxanne Perez. Last week, they had her collapsing in the ring, the same angle Shawn Michaels did in 1995 with Owen Hart, which led to Michaels for the first time being a legit drawing card after. There is an undisclosed medical issue with Perez regarding her maybe not being available. It's an injury or something that doesn't allow her to wrestle because she did the match with Miko Satomura and was training after the match. But we're told it's possible she will need to take a very short time or a longer time off, and the way the injury storyline was done covers them no matter what the determination is, which was supposed to be clear this week. While it's good that Perez's fainting was just for the angle, it's unclear what medical issue is keeping her away, and until we know more, all we can do is hope for the best for the young superstar. At WrestleMania, Trish Stratus will compete for the first time in over 3 years when she teams with Lita and Becky Lynch to face Damage Control. It has been reported that this alliance won't last forever, with Trish expected to turn heel and face Lynch at SummerSlam, but this has been in the works for some time. In The Observer, Meltzer explains that plans for a Trish heel turn have been in the works for some time, stating, "Regarding rumors of Trish Stratus going heel and facing Becky Lynch at SummerSlam, we had heard those prior to Stratus appearing on television in the sense she was going to turn heel on this return. The only thing confirmed was that there were twists and turns coming. As for what those twists and turns will be, only time will tell, but don't expect Trish to be a goodie for long as we get closer to SummerSlam in August." As we've seen time and time again, Rey Mysterio does not want to face his son Dominic at WrestleMania, and on SmackDown this week, rejected another offer to fight his own flesh and blood. While Rey didn't attack Dominic on SmackDown, he did attack L.A. Knight, who had been goading the future Hall of Famer, and Rey even used some profanity, albeit in a different language. During his attack, Mysterio said something in Spanish, which when translated to English means, "Don't mess with me, bitch. Be careful what you say." While Rey has refused to face Dominic, the match seems inevitable, with many believing that Dom will do something at the Hall of Fame to coax Rey into accepting the match. And what do you make to the angle and what we saw and heard from Rey during SmackDown? In July of this year, WWE will return to Madison Square Garden, but that show will go ahead without two of the company's biggest names. While WWE usually brings out their top stars for the Garden, that isn't the case this July, as Sean Ross Sapp reports that neither Roman Reigns nor Cody Rhodes have been advertised for the show. While Reigns isn't a huge surprise given his lucrative contract with WWE, Cody's absence from the event is interesting, given how significant Madison Square Garden is and Cody's respect for wrestling history. It's believed by many that Cody will be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns, and while Cody will no doubt be a fighting champion if he does just that, he won't be fighting inside MSG this July. For many fans, Kenny Omega is the greatest professional wrestler to never compete on WWE TV, but why exactly has the cleaner chosen not to sign with the company? Speaking to CBC Radio this week, Omega explained that while he was once under developmental contract, he found himself not enjoying WWE's product at the time, despite constantly being told that the only option to make a full-time living in wrestling was in WWE. Omega and others have proven that WWE isn't the only option for professional wrestlers these days, but with WWE hoping to win Omega away from AEW, his future in the ring is looking very interesting. And we're ending today with The Undertaker, whose legendary career ended in 2020, and the time since then hasn't been easy for the dead man. Speaking on Odyssey's The Bet 98.5 Las Vegas, The Undertaker was asked about his life after retirement and explained how tough the transition has been. "It's been difficult. That character was such an important part of my life and career. Just not being able to perform again, that's my passion. In my mind and heart, there's nothing I'd rather do than be in the ring and performing. That's who I am and what I've done for 30 plus years. I had a great run, my time is done, and it's time to do something different." The Undertaker will always be remembered as a legend, but his career, like the career of every wrestler, had to end one day, but experiencing life after the ring hasn't been easy for the Phenom.